Hey designer, Alex here, welcome to the channel, and in this video we are going to continue where we left off the previous time. In the first video we have created these paper wireframes and I showed you how you can draw your wireframes on paper, and I gave you this template. A link is going to be down in the description below to check that video out if you want to. Then in the next video we moved into Adobe XD and we have created these two screens, and I showed you how you can add some simple interactions like these and like this. So if you want to check that out, there is a link in the description to that video as well. There is also a link down below to the playlist, so once we publish all of these videos there is going to be entire playlist, so you can go video by video and simply click on those videos and watch them as well. There is also going to be a video right here in the card, so you can click there and watch all the previous and next videos. So in this video we are going to continue and create these two screens, and in the next video we are going to finish off with a confirmation screen and add animations and transitions between all of these different screens. So let's get started. So to get started, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to click right here to the top info, hit Ctrl C, then click here and delete our logos. Ctrl V and Ctrl V to paste all of this in, because I'm going to have this to be your card, because that's what that is. And the last thing I want to do is simply change the name, and I also want to remove the gradient for this screen because it's going to contain completely white background, but I'm going to keep the gradient in for this screen. So let's now move to the casual shirt, and what I'm going to do is click on my image, hit Ctrl C, hit Ctrl V, make sure it's to the top but below our top info. And what I'm going to do is lower the height just a little bit, so 350 for example, like that. And I'm going to include the image of my shirt. So once again, if you didn't watch previous videos, these images are premium images from Envato Elements, but you can use Unsplash images if you want to, or free images from websites like that. I like Envato Elements images because they come in 4, 6 or even 8K resolutions, so details are incredibly sharp, and also they are coming in sets. So you can see, for example, a set of this male model, for example, it comes in like 50 or 60 different images, so you can choose from all of those various images and show to your clients how that final look is going to look like. And you cannot do that on free websites like Unsplash, for example, where you might actually find 1 or 2 different images, but not this vast amount of images. Now what I'm going to do is jump right here to the bottom info, click on the bottom BG, hit Ctrl C, hit Ctrl V, paste that right here. And what I'm going to do is actually extend it in height, so we are going to go to 482. Like that. Make sure it goes to the bottom like this, and it simply covers our image, because if I put it right here you can see the image covers, so basically just a little bit above our image. What I'm going to do next is simply duplicate this text, paste it in, make sure it's in the center, make sure it goes right here to the top, or what you can actually do is jump right here to the previous screen. And I forgot to mention, you can download the practice file. It's located in the description below this video, and you can follow along if you want to. So you can create basically the same look same look I have, but without the images, if you don't decide to go for Envato Elements images. So I'm going to position it to 20 from here. So Shift 1, 2. Then I'm going to do the same for this, so make sure it's at 20. I'm going to call it Classic Men's Shirt. I'm going to hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, then make sure that this is, let's see, at 12. So basically the same like we have right here. So when we expand to the click state, this is 12 as well for this paragraph. So because this is going to be paragraph as well, let's make it 12 as well. Let's give it this same gray color. I'm just going to paste in that text which I already created on my previous screen. Now I'm going to hit Ctrl D, position this to be 20 as well, call it choose size, and finally Command D to choose color, like that. Now I'm going to make sure it's in the center. It is. And finally, what I'm going to do is create a button down here below. So what I'm going to do is bring back my grid layout. I'm going to use a rectangle tool. Make sure it goes from edge to edge, like that. Now for the button dimensions, let's go with 303 and with 50. And for the corner radius, let's see, maybe we can use 50. For the color, let's go with this color, and I'm going to remove the border because we don't need it. I'm going to duplicate this text, position it in the center, make sure it's on top. This is going to be BTN, which is short for button, obviously. And let's call it add to bag. I like how that looks like. The only thing I don't like is this bold text. Let's change it to regular. Let's change it to white and position it to be in the center like that. Make sure you group it, call it BTN, and hit Ctrl or Command K just so that we can have a component created right here, so that we can drag and drop this component later if we want it. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to remove this component because I want to create a new component. So hit Ctrl K just to show you, then click right here, create hover state, call it hover, because we want to add just a little bit of interest to our hover. Now for the hover, let's go back to the design mode. So click right here. And I'm going to include the shadow. Let's see how that looks like. That looks good. So just include that basic shadow, or you can play around with it if you want to. So basic one is 0, 3 and 6 for the blur. If you want, you can include a darker one. You can include shadow in color and so on and so forth. I'm not really going to do that. So top info is going to go to the top. Button is going to go all the way down. Now for the button itself, I'm going to move it 24. From the bottom. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create some circles which are going to be for the sizes, and I'm going to create some more circles which are going to be for the colors. Now for the sizes, let's start with the circle. So I'm going to draw a nice big circle, simply hold your shift key, and I'm going to call it size BG. What I'm actually going to do is include the border color of this, and for the size itself, let's go with 40 by 40 because we created these circles at 40 by 40 as well as these ones on top. So what I'm going to do is click right here, then remove the grid so you can see what I'm doing just a little bit better, like that. And I'm going to once again position it to be, so let's see, if I bring back my grid like that, I just want to make sure that it's located here and that it's 20 from this text on top. So shift 1, 2 like that. And if I hold my Alt or Option key, you can see it's 20 pixels down from this choose size text. Now what we're going to do next is create some spacing. So I'm going to use a rectangle, which is the size of this column, then select both of them and click right here, just to position it in the center. Now what I'm going to do next is remove this. I'm going to choose this text, position it right here, position it on top, make sure it's light, so regular. I'm going to call it S, so small size. Position it in the center like this and like this, and I'm going to call it S. Then I'm going to make some duplicates. You can use the repeat grid, but I'm not going to bother because it's a lot easier like this, I find. Next, what we're going to do is rename all of these. So this is going to be XL. this is going to be L, this is going to be M, and this is going to stay S. So one final thing is, as I said in the first video, I always like to rename my files and my layers. So you can right click, rename, call it L, or right click, rename, call it M, and this is S. And finally, I like to position them like this. Now, finally, what I want to do is make that same adjustment I did for the S. So make sure you select the rectangle, select these two, this is fine, position it right here, this is fine, and position it right here, this is fine as well. Let's delete that. And one final thing that I want to do is make sure that this is 20, so same like all of these other ones. And now we can move on to some animations. So how we are going to do that is we are going to group all of these, hit Ctrl G, call it sizes, and I'm going to move it below, and let's actually organize some things. So this is going to go below here, this is going to stay where it is, choose color is going to go there, choose size. So when you go from top to bottom and you start clicking, you can see that it goes in that order. Now for the sizes, let's see what we can do with that. So let's see, we have Control K to convert it into component, and this is going to be our default state. Now we're going to create some additional states. So we are going to create states for each of these sizes, and you can do that right away, but let's start by creating the first one. So click right here, new state, call it S, and for that state go to the S and simply use the fill color of this, click on the text, turn it into white, and that's basically it. Now if you want to make this process a little bit faster, you can go to the default state and select all of these backgrounds, then go to your colors, click right there, then go back and simply hide them like that. Now when you go to the first state, so to the S state, they should all be right there, they are. So it's a lot easier to switch them on or off again. So for this first one, let's click right there, S, so that one is selected. Let's go back, click new state, so next one is M. Let's go to the M, here it is. So turn this on, turn this off, and for the text, go back to that original color. And for this text, let's go to the white color and simply move on from there. So let's create another one. So this is going to be L. So we are moving from S, M, L. So for the L, let's switch it back on. Use this text. Make sure you select white color. Turn this off. You can double click right here. You can click right there. There it is. And finally, let's now move on to our last state, which is going to be XL. Like that. Simply move into XL. Show this. Make sure that this color is white. Double click inside, switch this off for the L, click here, and there it is. So we have created all of our states. Now let's quickly move on to animate them. So you're always going to start with the default state. Let's go to the prototype. So for this first one, they can click wherever they want. So tap, auto animate, and we're going to go to S. So tap, auto animate, they're going to go to M, tap, same thing with L, and finally tap here and they're going to go to XL. Now what we're going to do next is go between states. So on the S, auto animate, M, same thing, L, and finally same thing for the XL. It is a little bit boring to do this, but it's going to be worth it to present this to your client, especially when you send them just a plain basic image. they really don't know how the interaction is going to look like between all of your states and all your different elements. So to send them something like that, when they can actually click between all of these different states and to see your animations and to see what you've done and what you come up with, it's really rewarding for your clients, because they then really understand your logic and your thinking behind all of these elements, because once again, you are the designer, they are just the client. So don't ever assume that just because they gave you that job, they know everything you know, because that's really not the case. So if we click right here to go to the preview and then click, you can see what we've got. So basically they can click through between all of these different sizes and they can choose whichever size they want, but just make sure you always start with the default state. If we go back to the design and hit Ctrl S to save this. Now what we want to do now is to create colors. So to do that, I'm just going to use one of these circles. So hit Ctrl D, or sorry, we cannot do that because we cannot take it outside of the component. So hit Ctrl C, then close this, hit Ctrl V, and I'm going to call it color 1. Simply move it down, turn this on so that we can see it better. 1, 2. And 24 down, so it's fine because this is 24 down as well. So we have color 1, color 2. So basically we need to line it with this one, but let's deal with it a little bit later. So basically we're going to do the same thing once again. So select these two, position it like this, move this, position it in the center, move this, select this, and there we have it. Now let's rename them. So this is going to be color 2, this is color 3, this is color 4, and finally let me organize them just a little bit so they go from 1 to 4 like this. Move them all down below choose color text, obviously. Now what I'm going to do is choose colors which I originally included in, like that. Remove the border. Now let me select the next one, include it in, remove the border as well, and quickly let me choose this one and remove the border as well. And what I'm going to do is duplicate this first one, call it selector, and this selector is just going to be a smaller circle, so 20 by 20. It's going to be white color without any border, and we're going to position it in the center like this. So it's going to show us which of these colors is actually selected. Now you can do that with the outline as well for this color, for example, but I found that this selector is the easiest and most elegant way to show all of this. So to group them, call it colors, and in this first state I'm going to hide the selector so you can lower the opacity down. Make sure you hit Ctrl K to turn it into a component, then call this color 1 like that. And inside of the color 1 we are going to have the selector on like that. When you create color 2, selector is obviously going to move to here. Color 3 is going to be the same thing, so make sure to move the selector to color 3. And finally, let's create color 4 and move the selector in there as well. I'm going to go through the entire process of wiring those up. So once again, prototype in the default state. When you click on your color, this is going to be color 1, same settings as for these ones. So auto animate, ease out. You can use ease in, out. You can use snap for this one, for example. And let's actually see how that looks like. So for the snap, this is going to be color 2, snap as well. Color 3, and finally color 4. Before we move on any further, let's see how that looks like. So we actually need to go to this color 1 and then click on this one and prototype it that way. So let's go to the original state. I just want to see how that snap looks like. So it doesn't look all that well. So color 2, color 3 and color 4. So let's go here, click here, and I think it looks really nice. 0.2 looks really well. So let's now go, we have created color 1. Now let's go to the color 2 and basically do exactly the same thing. So just use where we are at the moment. So color 1, we done that, color 2, and click right here, and now let's do the same thing. So as I said, this process is really boring process, but it's really necessary if you want to create your apps and your prototypes to look really polished and to basically give them some depth and some animation, because as I said, static image is not really what majority of clients understand. And I really love Adobe XD because of that, because it gives you that possibility to include all of these different animations and to play around with different settings inside of it and to show to your clients or your team members what can actually be done. So if we hit preview and I enlarge this, if we click right there, you can see that we can change sizes and choose whichever we want. Then for the colors, you can see how that looks like. So we have this nice little snap effect, and it goes from whichever one you want and it simply snaps into place. It really looks nice, and we have this subtle drop shadow effect. So I really like how this screen turned out. And before we move on any further, make sure to click right there, remove the grid and hit Ctrl S to save it. Now for your cart, if we consult the wireframe, you can see that we have basically this same setup as we have right here. And we have ×1, ×2, so the amount of items added to cart, the color of the item itself. Finally, we have the total below and pay now button, which is taking us to the confirmation screen. So let's now do that. What I'm actually going to do is use this same setting that we have right here. So hit Ctrl C, go back here, hit Ctrl V. I'm going to include my grid layout in. I'm going to lower the opacity just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to hide the shadow because I don't want the shadow on this white background because I find I don't need it. I'm going to have the image be at 2 columns. And finally, for this text, make sure it's left align, it is. And finally, I need one more text, so hit Ctrl D, go right here. I'm going to choose the lowest one, so 12, for example. We're going to type in size L, like that. And finally, the distance between them can be 10, for example. So let's see, 10, 10, and 10. And let's see, maybe we can enlarge this or leave it as it is. Yeah, let's leave it as it is, not to complicate things even further. So I'm going to position this here, price is going to be here, this is going to be called product 1. Below top info, let's move it all the way up. Let's position it 1, 2, 3, 4, so 40 pixels down. What I'm actually going to do is use some of these. So for the sizes, let's use this, Ctrl C, Ctrl V to paste it in. I'm going to place it in the middle and I'm going to position it until it snaps to the right of our grid, like that. And finally, what I'm going to do is actually select the color. So this is the shirt. We're going to use the color of the shirt. So move it in like that. Let's call it, let's see, color plus amount. Like that. Now color, is going to be, let's see, let's call it color. Fill it in with this original color, because if I hide this, go back in, you can see this is our color. We're going to remove the border because we don't need it. Now for the amount, let's go with white color because it's easier. And for the amount, let's call it x1, so times 1. And let's see, maybe we can lower it to 14 because, yeah, it fills in the space a lot nicer. So that's basically our layout. Only thing we need to do now is repeat it. So once again, you can use repeat grid for this, like that. Make sure you have 4 and make sure you have 40 pixels between all of them, like that. So what I actually going to do is, we have the size for the pants as well. You can see that we have shirt and you can see that we have glasses right here. I don't know why it didn't keep the glasses text, but it doesn't matter, we can fill that in. So we are going to call this glasses. Price is going to be 15. Size is going to be for example normal, or let's leave it at L. Let's not complicate things too much. This is going to be shoes. Price is 87. Size, let's give it the name of 44, for example, because that's the European size. These are the pants. They are at 43. And let's now give them some colors. So for the glasses, let's use the basic color of these glasses. So for example, like this. For the shoes, let's use a color like this, maybe even lighter, just so that it can differentiate these a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is actually break up my grid, so ungroup grid, because it's doing some weird things with these colors and I don't want that. So for the shirt, I want to change all of these colors independently. I don't want it to change like it wants to. So it was useful to basically change all of these colors and to play around with all of this text, and it really did speed up my process. But now I want to keep the full control myself and basically change whatever I need. So for this, maybe we can even go to the darker black like this. And basically we are done with this screen. Only thing which is left for us to do is to add button down below. But before we do, let's organize these just a little bit better. So product 2, this is the product 3. And finally we have the product 4 down below. Now let's add button, but before we do, I want to use some of this text. So I'm going to use, let's see, price and the name, drag them outside, then reposition them down here, bring my grid back. I'm going to use this same button like that, but what I'm actually going to do is narrow it down to 3 columns. So like this, and it's going to be okay. Now I'm going to hit Ctrl A, Ctrl C to duplicate, to copy this text, move this all the way down, move this down. Now click on my button, go to the hover state. You can see that we have the same hover state as with this, so we have to change it as we did with this. So that's why I copy and pasted this text, because it's a lot faster. Now for this, let's move the price to the top and let's give it 174. I think it's the final total, and let's call this total. Now for the total price, let's use 14 because I just want to give it something a little bit smaller. Make sure these are in the middle and make sure they are in the middle as well to here. So I think that looks good, and I think that wraps up our screen, which is basically what we have created so far. So all of these looks connect, and in the next and final video of this series, I'm going to show you how you can add some different animations and how you can spice things up even more and add transitions between all these screens to go back using these back arrows. And finally, we are going to create this confirmation screen. We're going to add splash of colors. So finally, when they click pay now, it's going to go to here. So same like we have created in our wireframes here. They're going to go to here, and it's going to be presented with a nice and subtle animation. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe, make sure to hit that like button and to press that bell notification icon so that you can be alerted next week when I launch the next and final video in this mobile app design series. So thank you once again for watching, and I see you in the next one. Take care.